No Man's Sky is probably the most hyped game of the decade thus far. Like almost all things that receive this sort of attention, though, it just doesn't quite live up to it. Before we get into this review, I need to give a couple of disclaimers. First off, I've not had the sort of performance issues that many PC players have. I'm not sure if my machine has just enough horsepower to overcome it, or if I've just been lucky. Regardless, performance issues have not severely impacted my play experience. Secondly, at this point in time, there is a lot of confusion as to what certain in-game items, actions, and mechanics really do. So I may say something that is wrong simply due to the fact that we have not been given any official clarification. So, as a result, the opinions in this review are extremely based in my own experiences. We all good then? Okay, here we go. For the pros. First off, we have the art style. This game feels heavily influenced by 70s sci-fi. Everything is shiny, wrapped in spandex, and more gaudy than it really should be. We also have quite a lot of reference to other popular space franchises. For example, there are ships that look very similar to TIE fighters, the Serenity from Firefly, and the Lambda shuttle. We also have stations that are references as well, with things that look like the Death Star, a Borg cube, and the octagonal stations of Elite Dangerous. There are several others I've noticed so far, and perhaps ones I haven't. I also suspect there are more in the game, as I keep finding new ones after about 20 hours of play. Second, we have the audio design. I almost said soundtrack there, but really the entire audio track to this game is amazing. The ambient noise of different types of planets is varied and creates the perfect atmosphere for exploring. Say you're on a dead planet or moon. There's no atmosphere, no creatures, no plant life. You hear nothing at first, but then a sentinel floats by. Its normal noise distorted due to the lack of atmosphere. It sounds almost like a screech, and you feel your heart rate increase as tense music slowly starts to ramp up in volume. You panic, shoot it, and then they attack. Sentinels float in, and the tense music shifts to a fast rock track. The battle ends, and the music fades to nothing but silence again. There are experiences like that for many scenarios. An orchestral track plays as you discover a new star. Hard rock blares for an intense space battle. Leaves rustle and water sloshes as you tromp through a swampy region. I could go on, but I think you get the picture. Despite having played for over 20 hours at the time of writing, this never gets old. I never grow tired of hearing the wonderful sounds of a living, breathing world. Third, we have lore. The lore of this game is there in place of a concrete story. You discover tomes that describe a creature to you. You find a race of machines that somehow knows who you are, despite you not even knowing exactly who you are yourself. You stumble into interesting cultural situations as you wander into a station where an alien asks you to marry his daughter because of your standing with his race, and yes, that one did happen to me. There is also lots of really intriguing flavor text on certain items and equipment that lends to the idea that, again, this is a living and breathing universe. Finally, we have immersion. Immersion is an almost magical idea that a game can be so lifelike, which is not the same as realistic, but lifelike enough that we get lost in it. No Man's Sky pulls this off. The sound design, art design, lore of the world, and overall idea of exploring and searching the galaxy fully pulled me in. When I play games, I always know how long I've been playing for. I have a family and a job, and I need to be aware of when I need to stop and go do something else. This game, though, just grabs me in. My wife asked me how long I was going to be playing the other day. I told her probably about an hour. I had some projects I needed to work on. Later, she came back and asked me if I knew how long I'd been playing. My response was, not too long, I think. Why? She laughed and told me it had been nearly 3 hours. For the cons. First up, performance. This game is an unoptimized, buggy, and glitchy mess. That goes for me too, despite not experiencing the numerous crashing bugs, serious game-breaking issues, and whole host of other problems that other people have been having. It seems that the minimum specs for the game are much too low due to this fact. People with brand new GTX 1080s have reported issues just as common as people with 5-year-old cards. The issues also are very present on AMD hardware as well, with AMD CPUs seeming to have more problems than Intel ones at present. It seems that the minimum specs at present are actually closer to that of a system with an Intel i5 and a GTX 970 or their AMD equivalents, with 16 gigabytes of RAM being the minimum due to how much this game loads up at once due to the procedural generation. Another trend with it at the moment seems to be that the more VRAM your graphics card has, the better off the game runs due to the last point I just made. Second, we have the inventory system. Seriously, this is the worst aspect of this game. Your ship and suit both have mandatory equipment for your survival. The ship has 5 pieces of equipment, and the suit has 4. These items all take up normal inventory slots on your suit and ship, meaning that each ship you get has to take that many slots away right up front. You never get a different suit, only more backpack slots, so just think of your suit as having a permanent handicap. On top of that, any upgrades you acquire also take up a slot. In the early game, this can be extremely detrimental. While you may need a shield upgrade to deal with the pirates in your region, taking it means you'll have to make more treks back to a starbase or trading post in order to sell your loot. Also, commodities don't stack. Each one takes up a separate inventory slot, so only mineable minerals and other materials stack. That means if you find a bunch of commodities at an abandoned building or crash site, too damn bad. Third, we have the lack of waypoints. This is another what the hell were you thinking moment in a game this large with this many places to explore. There is absolutely no way to find yourself back to where you were before. You can set star systems as waypoints on the galactic map, which can sometimes be useful, but if you want to come back and explore a specific region of a solar system or get back to a point of interest after you've completed an objective, then good luck, my friend. You can wander for hours and not see even the tiniest portion of a planet or a moon. Seriously, what the hell were they thinking? Finally, we have the way the game controls. I'm combining 2 points for this one, so bear with me a moment. On the ground, things are fine. Moving, shooting, and etc. all control like you would expect them to. Hop in your ship, and we've got a whole new animal to deal with. In space, it's annoying but manageable. The unresponsive controls can be largely forgiven when you're just trying to get to another destination. Asteroid mining or combat is a bit more frustrating, but again manageable since you can stop and fly in reverse. On planets, though, you mostly are just given vague suggestions for where you want your ship to go. Sometimes you'll tell it to turn left and it will go up. Other times you'll tell it to go down and it will turn right. Sometimes it just veers off in another direction despite not giving it any commands at all. This, I think, comes down to the fact that the ship can't fly close to the ground. You're maybe 100 feet off the ground at a minimum, and trying to fly low just mucks it all up. Granted, in atmosphere the controls are still unresponsive and sluggish just like in space, so perhaps it's a good thing you can't fly too low and crash into the ground. The second point is the click and hold system. This is a PC game, for Christ's sake. When I point my mouse at something, I expect to click it and then it do the thing that it's supposed to. Not click and hold for a second while you make sure I'm doing what I want. I get this on consoles. Joysticks sometimes are fiddly in menus as full as the ones in No Man's Sky, but this isn't a console version. I will say I don't mind the press and hold aspects for a couple of your actions. Taking off uses fuel in your ship and needs about 5 seconds to be able to land again. Occasionally my fat clumsy fingers will slip and hit the W key, which then takes off. I appreciate the time savings there, but now that I'm thinking about it, honestly, if I didn't have to click and hold for every single other action I take, then I would be saving even more time. I've had to click and hold a few thousand times by now, and I've only accidentally hit W maybe 5 times at most, so I take that back. I hate clicking / pressing and holding. Finally, for this game, we have one item that winds up in a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. That would be the procedural generation element of this game. This engine can produce some wonderful elements in game. I've seen wonderful, beautiful, and varied planets, plants, and animals. I saw a planet that looked like it was made out of candy canes. I witnessed a platypus with a turtle shell on its back and antlers on its face spread wings and fly. I observed a Venus flytrap creature eat a dragonfly bird that landed nearby. Yet for each of these interesting and wonderful things, I find at least 3 generic snow or ocean worlds with little to no life on them at all. I find samey plant types that don't do anything interesting, and I find animals that are boring mixes of normal body parts. I've also not seen anything at all that looks like what was in the trailers they showed, although some people have posted screenshots online that have. The procedural generation can also produce some weird results. Floating bases in the sky that you can't reach, doors inside mountains that you can't get into, buildings that have objectives inside but no door leading into the building. These things tend to be a bit more uncommon, but except for the building with no door, I've seen all of them a few times. My conclusion. When trying to describe this game, average is a word that comes to mind. Not the kind of average where everything is middle of the road, but the kind of average you get when you add 100 to a 0 and then divide it by 2. What this game does well, it does better than any game I've ever played before. What this game does poorly, it really, really fucks up. There's very little middle ground, which leads to a very polarizing gameplay experience. If you're someone like me who really enjoys space and survival games, or if you're someone who really loves survival exploration games, then I think you'll enjoy it. If you're not those things, however, there probably isn't much here for you. Supposedly, things like basic construction and larger ship types are coming in the future, and if those things interest you, then maybe when they come out you could give it a shot, but right here in the present, if you aren't someone who fits my first description, then you should stay very, very far away from this. So that wraps it up for No Man's Sky. Until next time, bye-bye now.